Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of my new series where I'll be going over basics for every character in Guilty Gear Strive. Recently, I've come into contact with a lot of new players who I feel could use some guidance when it comes to picking their first character. This series will be mainly aimed at players who are picking up the game for the first time, with the focus of giving a practical breakdown of what every character does, their difficulty, and their overall effectiveness. I'll be assuming you have a basic level of game knowledge already, or that you're able to look things up on your own. I'll not be explaining basic concepts such as how to block or air dash. That being said, let's get right into it. Before we start off with the first character, I'm going to go through a really quick Strive introduction. Firstly, Strive is a strike throw based game with limited access to overheads. Most characters only have their jumping normals or dust as their form of overhead. Secondly, the Strive community uses number pad notation. That means directional inputs are annotated based on the directions on a keyboard's number pad, i.e. 6 means forward. Another important thing to know is that every character has a universal anti-air attack referred to as 6P or forward punch. Although it doesn't look like an anti-air on most characters, it has upper body invincibility which will go through the majority of aerial attacks. You can also grab DPs in this game. Now that that's out of the way, the first character I'll be starting out with is my main Nagoriyuki. Nago is essentially a high damage glass cannon character. He has some of the most oppressive offense in the game and excels at making reads and forcing your opponent into high stakes situations. The main drawbacks of the character comes in the form of his blood gauge. Using special moves causes the blood gauge to increase, and if it fills up completely, you open yourself up to a free loss. Your blood also increases the range of your sword normals and their speed, as well as the damage you take. I would rank Nagoriyuki at 4 out of 5 stars in difficulty for a newer player to pick up. However, I will say he's more non-traditional per se than difficult. He also doesn't have a lot of air options or access to anything super scrubby right off the bat like other characters. With that being said, he does get his power spike fairly early in the learning process, which opens up a lot of possibilities. It's also worth mentioning that he's easily a top 5 character at high level. If you think he's cool or looks fun, he's not the worst character choice if you have any experience doing basic inputs. Before I get into the character, let's do a quick numbers rundown for the blood gauge. You get 3 specials before you pop. Every special using the sword costs slightly less than a bar, while the command dash, Fukio, costs a little less than half a bar. The command grab resets your blood back to 0 for the most part, and your sword normals reduce the total amount of blood in the blood gauge. His super also greatly reduces the amount of blood in the blood gauge. Your blood will passively decrease over time alongside your other ways of reducing it, however, the rate for this is abysmal. Okay, now let's get to what you should actually be doing on the character. To start off, we're going to learn a basic corner carry into a meaty setup. Doing meaties or any type of move that locks down your opponent on wake up is the basis of every character in the game. You want to be doing this at every chance you get. I'll quickly show it off to start, and then we'll do a breakdown afterwards. You start off with any grounded norm. Some work better than others. In this case, I'll be using 2S. Once it hits, you're going to cancel it into Beyblade, which is quarter circle back H. Next, you're going to cancel the Beyblade into Fukio forward or quarter circle forward K. Then land the 6H while your opponent is on the ground. This is referred to as an OTG or off the ground. Finally, you're going to cancel the 6H into Fukio forward again, which will set you up perfectly for a meaty close slash on your opponent. After you get them in the situation, some easy corner combos you could do are close slash, 5K, 6H, or close slash 5K 5SSS. I would highly recommend setting the bot to grab on wake up to practice these, that way you can get your reading timings down. Next, I'll go over some simple confirms you can do off of common buttons, starting with anti-air 6P. After counter hitting someone out of the air with 6P, you do Fukio forward into OTG 6H, and Fukio forward again to get an easy meaty setup. Another common one is anti-air 2H. After you counter hit them, you can do a Fukio forward into a second 2H into another Fukio forward to get a meaty setup. This combo structure goes for the rest of his heavy buttons as well. For example, if you have at least one bar of blood, you can combo counter hit 5H into Fukyo forward 5H or Fukyo forward 6H depending on the distance. You can already start to see how quickly the damage adds up just from these basic combos and setups. Some others that you might want to know are the 5K and 5P confirms. For 5K, you would obviously start off with the 5K and then go into 6K, then Beyblade Fukyo forward OTG 6H into a melee. Or if you want to break wall from mid-screen, you could do 5K, 6K, 623H, Fukyo forward into close / and break wall with 6H. For 5P, it's pretty much the same thing. 5P, 6P into Beyblade Fukyo forward. The only difference is, since you're using a lighter attack, 6H won't have enough time to OTG, so you'll have to use another move. I recommend 2S since it'll give you some blood back. I personally use 2K because that's the way I first learned it and I think it looks cooler. Next, I'll talk about his supers. Most of the time, you're going to want to combo into a super when you're at high blood and can't convert into Beyblade without popping. Easy ways to do this would be 5P, 6P super or 5K, 6K super. You can also break wall with this super to get extra damage and a hard knockdown on your opponent when you land. You'll also easily build back the meter you lost due to positive bonus. Next, I'll quickly touch over Blood Rage mode. First and foremost, you should always be managing your blood and should never be in this mode unless you're doing a setup. However, if you do end up in Blood Rage and you're somehow still alive, here are some easy super confirms that do crazy damage. The basic one is 2S, 5H, 63214 6H, or forward half circle back forward. You can also do it off any of his other H normals as well. The spiciest you can get with it is something like close slash, 5K, 5S, 5H, and a super. They all do pretty much the same damage because of scaling. If they're under half health, they're probably going to die from it, especially if it breaks wall. On to setups in Okazime. Every single time you can do a meaty close slash, you could also do a meaty grab. The timing is a little later as everyone has 5 frames of throw invincibility on wake up. After you hit the command grab, there's an easy strike down mix-up you can do. You manually time his fireball 236S to hit meaty. It's +5. From there, you can either command grab again or frame trap with close slash. If they end up blocking your meaty close slash, you can chain it into 5SS for an easy command grab. You can also frame trap with Beyblade or DP if they decide to mash and go into a full combo from it. Let's go over some slightly more advanced corner setups using Roman Cancel. For this first one, you start out with 5SS, which will greatly reduce your blood on hit or block. Then, as the final attack lands, you red Roman Cancel upwards. From there, you can do a few different things, one of which is JH, which hits overhead. You can confirm it into 2S Beyblade 6H OTG for pretty big damage into more Oki. With the same setup, you could let yourself fall after the RC upwards and hit low with 2K 2D 6H OTG. Or you could command grab into a meaty clone setup. This last setup is a little more mechanically demanding. After hitting the 5SSS, you're going to hit red RC, and then within 15 frames of the red RC starting up, you're going to input Fukyo forward. If you do it right, the ending animation of the Roman Cancel won't come out and you'll immediately go into the Fukyo. That's everything I specifically wanted to cover in this video. This should give you enough to mess around with on your own. I might cover some more advanced setups in the future, but for now I'll leave you with a quick montage of all the extra clips I had while the track plays out.